It started off like the healthiest relationship I'd ever had. He talked about boundaries, communication, emotional intelligence. He told me he'd been to therapy, that he was in touch with his inner child. I was impressed. Relieved, even. I thought, finally, someone who gets it. We spent hours discussing feelings, attachment styles, trauma. He told me how he was learning to be more secure, how he used to be avoidant but was working on it. He used all the right words. Said all the right things. At first, it felt comforting. Like I could finally be safe in love. But slowly, it turned. Anytime I brought up an issue, he'd say I was being reactive, or that I wasn't being self-aware. He'd accuse me of projecting if I expressed hurt. If I cried, he'd say I was being emotionally manipulative. He started diagnosing me casually, calling me anxious avoidant, codependent, emotionally dysregulated. It felt less like communication and more like a therapy session where I was always the patient, and he was the therapist. He'd say things like, "I'm setting a boundary," when really he was just stonewalling me. Or, "This is triggering my nervous system," as an excuse to shut down any uncomfortable conversation. I started doubting myself. I'd rehearse every sentence before I spoke, afraid he'd label me as toxic. I read self-help books obsessively, trying to fix myself, thinking I must be the problem. But the more I changed, the more control he took. He said I wasn't doing the work because I wanted to talk about my feelings. He said I was emotionally immature for needing reassurance. He even said, "You're not trauma-informed," when I called out his hurtful behavior. Eventually, I started to shut down. I stopped expressing anything. I stopped asking for my needs to be met. I walked on eggshells, terrified of being labeled wrong, broken, unstable. But something in me knew this wasn't right. I started talking to a real therapist, one who didn't use psychology as a weapon. She helped me see what was happening. That my ex had weaponized the language of healing. He'd turned therapy into a tool of control. There's a name for it, therapy speak abuse. It happens when someone uses the language of mental health not to connect, but to dominate, deflect, and manipulate. When I finally left, he told me I was running from accountability. That I was emotionally unavailable. But this time, I didn't believe him. I've learned that real healing isn't about using the right words, it's about being present. Listening. Taking responsibility. Being safe. Now, I'm more cautious. I pay attention not to how fluid someone is in therapy language, but how they treat me when I'm vulnerable. That's the real test. If someone makes you feel smaller in the name of being healthy, if they constantly label you instead of listening, trust your gut. Healthy love doesn't make you feel like you're always wrong. It helps you feel seen and safe.